Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Income is the Outcome, where we believe it's not how much you earn, it's how much you keep. I'm your host, Kristin Oakley, and I'm joined in the studio by Tim Whistler. He is the founder and president of the Whistler Agency. We're so glad that you're joining us today. The title of today's show is Retire on Your Terms, no matter what life might throw your way. The good news is you're never too old to be able to finish, and to finish well on your terms. Tim, my friend, always good to be here with you. How are you this week?
I'm great, Kristin. It's always great to be here with you as well.
Well, thank you. Well, I'm very excited about today's show because I think it's really going to help reach a lot of people who are struggling right now. You know, nothing is more devastating than when you are planning to work up until a certain date. You have your retirement date in mind. You're excited to continue and finish out your career at your current place of employment, and then wham, life happens. We know that so many folks are rocked by a corporate downsizing, strategic reorganization, whatever other corporate jargon they might try to sugarcoat it with. But the reality is, here you are. You think you're near the finish line and you've just unexpectedly lost your job. Yep. It happens a lot. And I know that you recently walked through this exact scenario with some clients of yours. And I would love for you to take an opportunity to really share that story with our viewers, because I know it's going to bring you all a lot of hope and encouragement if you yourself are facing that exact situation. So Tim, please go ahead and share that with us.
Absolutely. So this particular couple that came to mind when we were starting to talk about, this particular episode and sharing this message that I hope is so, vital for to make that connection with everybody. Mm-hmm. This particular couple and I actually connected back in 2022.
Okay.
Right after, when COVID hit, everything kind of shut down. As we know, we went more virtual.
Yep.
And I was conducting virtual webinars and speaking with people really literally all across the country. Mm-hmm. And really got to have the opportunity to engage with folks. And this particular couple in a couple of states away from Illinois, we met and we kind of went through that initial get acquainted conversation. We're obviously doing it through Zoom, which is a little bit different than in person.
Right.
But we follow the same process. And they started to share with me their timeline. They said, we kind of just want to be a little bit more proactive, we think. We want to make sure that we're on the right track, because this is kind of what we're looking towards. Mm-hmm. And they had some very specific months and years in mind, which I really, really appreciate. In fact, if they don't pull that out, if they don't share that with me, I try to pull it out of them.
Yeah.
I want to be that detailed, right? What's the month? What season of that year are we going to retire?
Yes.
So they kind of had those dates and they said, okay, perfect. We've got a good idea where we're at. We thank you for your time. We're going to be back in touch with you as the months and years unfold. Perfect. Mm-hmm. So just like that, a few months pass by, all of a sudden I get an email. And the husband reaches out and says, hey, just a quick little nugget that I want to get to the top of your mind is I had an opportunity with one of my pensions from a previous employer. And as most pensions sometimes, they offer that lump sum or the pension payout. And he wasn't really quite sure how to leverage that.
Which option to take, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, instead of trying to go through the maximization process, we went through the leveraging process. How do we optimize that pension? Mm-hmm. So that was a few conversations as well. He really liked the recommendation we came up with. He said, perfect, we'll be back in touch with you. Because right now, things are still going on their terms.
Yeah,
right.
Right.
Then all of a sudden, another email comes. Hey, Tim, do you have some time to talk? We need to talk with you. I said, sure, perfect. So I sent him my calendar, and we jumped on a Zoom call. And just like what you said in the open is exactly what happened to him. All of a sudden, he got the note. He got the note from his boss saying, I'm sorry, your position has been severed. We're going to talk through, what this means to you. What does COBRA look like for you? And it just took him by surprise.
Yeah.
And
it can rock your world, for sure.
That's exactly right. And that's kind of the reaction that he had for me. And he said, so we kind of need to revisit this. And I said, Dwayne, that's perfectly fine. Let's revisit, but just know that because of what you have already done, you and your wife have already done, now we'll simply just adjust and modify.
Yes.
We're simply just moving the dates up a little bit.
Right.
So now that may incorporate, okay, do we need to maybe reposition some assets, possibly? What about Social Security? Because they kind of had an idea in mind of when they might turn on Social Security, but we hadn't quite got to that depth yet of the conversation. Now all of a sudden that became a priority. So, kind of bundling all this together was the standpoint of how this ended up being, what the situation was. We walked through several conversations with them, about an hour and 15 minutes at a time. And now we've adjusted the original plan to the new plan to adjust to the current terms of where he's at right now. And it was just how empowering that was for us, for my team and I, to say, look, we edified them for taking the time to reach out and being proactive, like we encourage a lot of folks to do. Be proactive with the overall plan. Because then all of a sudden, like Kristin said, when life can happen to you without your permission, now all of a sudden we already have the plan in place. Maybe that initial shock factor isn't quite as dramatic as maybe it would be if there was no plan in place at all. So now we simply went back to the original plan with him, we adjusted a few things, and now we have the plan in place for him, no longer employed, but they're still right on track to realize the ideal retirement that they have coming up.
Wow, and that's the key, right? They're still on track to realize the retirement of their dreams, because I think for a lot of folks, the thought of losing a job at this critical time can feel like the worst possible timing. And what really stands out to me about that story, and you said it so well, you're celebrating their proactiveness because they had done the work, because they had gone ahead and ahead of time had this plan put into place, then the necessary adjustments and tweaks could be made. But you can't do that if you don't have the plan to start with, right? It'd
be almost like, okay, we didn't really plan ahead, and all of a sudden life just happened to me. Life just threw me a curveball. Now what do we do? Okay, well again, if that does happen, it's okay. We'll just build that plan from that point in time and move forward. But again, that initial shock might be a little bit more unnecessary if we kind of maybe take a proactive approach and start to kind of plan ahead of time, because we talk all the time about that retirement red zone. The 5 years prior to our desired retirement and the 5 years immediately after. Those 10 years are so critical to having that roadmap, to having the details, to having the retirement dream board. What are we going to do in retirement? How do we optimize Social Security? If there's pension options, do we take the lump sum? If we take the payout, how do we include the spouse benefit? I mean, there's all kinds of those different details that we unpack, provide it into that customized written financial plan, and now we know exactly where we're at, and it can keep us on track even if things happen to us without our permission. Exactly right. Well, I know that story has to be an encouragement to anyone who's watching today who might be facing that same situation. Maybe you yourself are watching and you've just gone through a very unexpected layoff or forced early retirement. Tim, what would you say to someone who is watching, who is right there right now, and they're going, help, like what steps do I need to take right now if maybe they haven't had that plan in place prior? Absolutely. I think right now the first thing is just take a breath, right? Stay positive. It's not the end all. It's obviously not what we planned, but it's not the end of the story. So I think it's even more imperative that you just take the next step. You've watched Chris and I to this point. Go ahead and call the number on the screen, scan the QR code, jump onto our calendar, and let's have that conversation. We can start to unpack, okay, this is what happened, this is where we're at. Now how do we make some adjustments to, again, get you through retirement and help you realize that ideal retirement strategy that you and your spouse have planned for retirement. Wonderful. Tim, I'm so excited to continue this conversation with you today, and we hope that this is bringing you a lot of hope and encouragement, especially if you are facing an earlier retirement than you had planned. You don't have to go this alone. Tim would love to be able to walk through this with you and the entire team of the Whistler Agency and help you navigate so that you can still retire on your terms. The key is you have to reach out, so we encourage you to pick up the phone and call the number that you see on the bottom of your screen to schedule your time to come in and receive your very own complimentary written financial plan, 888-992-7829. Or if you'd rather connect online, you can simply pull out your smartphone, open up the camera app, scan and click the QR code that you see there down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team from the Whistler Agency will reach out to connect with you to schedule your complimentary meeting that way as well. Stay with us. We'll be back with more about this conversation on retiring on your terms, no matter what life might throw your way. Stay with us. What kind of led me into this business was the year 2000. Within a span of 4 months, we went from a moment of just pure jubilation to just a horrible situation, from the birth of our firstborn to the death of my mother 4 months after that, and she was 52. And I was only 31 at the time. And here, Cameron's not even 4 months old. My mom's now passed away. You really start to reflect on what life is all about. Deep down, I always kind of wanted to run my own business at some form or fashion, but I didn't know what that entailed. But it became very apparent when I saw what my father went through financially after the death of my mother. One of the most smartest guys I've ever known, but just like with most people, finances was a foreign language to him. And he somewhat got taken advantage of by an advisor. So that was the moment where I knew this is what I wanted to do, because I didn't want to just make a living, I wanted to make a difference. My mom has never seen my logo. She's never heard me on a podcast. She's never seen me do a presentation, but she's the fuel that fills my passion for this industry because of the fact that I miss her terribly even today, almost 23 years. It was what I saw my dad go through that inspires me to say, okay, if that happens to somebody else, as long as I can have that conversation ahead of time, hopefully then they won't experience what my dad went through. And that's what ultimately led me into the business. And I feel as though this is where God led me, and I love being here. And as long as he continues to bless me of sound mind and body, this is what I'll do for the rest of my days.
Welcome back to Income is the Outcome. I'm Kristin Oakley here with Tim Whistler, president and founder of the Whistler Agency, and we're having a really meaningful conversation today on the subject of how to retire on your terms, no matter what life might throw your way. We know that life still happens. That's true both before retirement and equally as true after retirement, right, Tim?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, well, and I love that story that you shared prior to the break of the couple who recently went through an early forced layoff. We know that that's happening to a lot of folks, but it may be for you, maybe it's being blindsided by divorce. Maybe there's something unexpected, an unexpected death in the family. I mean, there's so many things that can happen. Right. So my question for you is, how are you able to help ensure that folks can still retire on their terms, literally no matter what life might throw their way?
You know, we've heard that saying before, that the best time to dig a well is when you already have water. Right? So it's that analogy of saying, it might be kind of a goofy analogy, but I think it's pretty applicable, of saying, look, you know, let's go ahead and start with the plan. The sooner that we start with that plan, the better off we're going to be. Because again, if we have kind of a good foundation set for what our retirement needs to look like, when does that retirement need to start? How do we leverage and optimize all the different assets, income streams, et cetera, to get us into and through retirement? The sooner that we start that process, I think the better off we're going to be. And again, it's just one of those things where I just constantly try to encourage folks. This is not just a set it and forget it, right? We sit down, we meet, here's the plan, and good luck.
Right.
It's constantly in motion. It's constantly fluid. For example, a job loss, a divorce, a death. I mean, all of those types of life events can significantly impact the original plan. So I think it's good for us to maybe start that conversation, if we can, prior to any of those events occurring.
Yep, so that someone can be equipped and prepared to navigate those and to make the necessary tweaks. But like we already said, you can't tweak a plan that's not been made, right?
That's exactly right.
You gotta have the plan and then make those adjustments.
Yep.
Well, you know, I know that you often walk folks through, kind of informally, if you will, a checklist. Right. So if someone's watching and they're thinking through, okay, what do I need, what ducks do I need to have in a row, or what would be that pre-retirement checklist items that they'd want to have in place? What comes to the top of your mind?
You know, I think what's really fun, let's start this topic off on a fun thing.
Okay.
What does retirement look like? You know, maybe we've heard that analogy of the dream board, right? You have this big blank white white sheet of paper.
Board,
yeah,
right?
The vision board, that's right. And you basically, okay, what do you want retirement to look like? Time with the kids, time with the grandkids, some travel, some hobbies, some volunteer. Put it all on the sheet of paper. It's a blank canvas, you're the artist. Put that up there, okay? Now that we have that in mind, what do we want to look at? All right, now let's start to break it down. Okay, well, as we know, if we retire, we need income. We still have bills to pay. Now we're going to want to break down our expenses between the difference between needs and wants. So we help clients do that. So in other words, let's talk through, what do you need? Okay, utilities, food, shelter, insurance, those are necessities. Yep. Now what do we want? Well, we want to do some traveling. Okay, define for me what some traveling means. Are we taking a cruise every 30 days? I mean, what does that look like? You know, we're going to take some road trips to visit the grandkids because they're a couple hours away. Let's define that, and now we have the plan to pay for the wants. Right. So now we've sat down. So again, we're not doing the dreaded B word of living within a budget per se. We want to still track our expenses. Yep. Because again, not to try to bring up a negative topic, but why do lottery winners and professional athletes who've earned or received tens of millions, maybe sometimes hundreds of millions, why do they go bankrupt? I dare say there probably wasn't a plan.
Exactly.
They weren't tracking things. So, you know, you didn't work for decades to get to this point of your life to transition to this wonderful world called retirement and go into it without a plan. We do not want to do that. Right. So we want to visualize what that retirement wants to look like. Then let's start to kind of break down the income, expenses, identify the needs and the wants. And from there, we can start to cultivate that written, complementary financial plan customized directly for them.
And I know that has to be so fun. Probably the best part of your job is when folks come in and they have these dreams and ideas of what they want to do, and they're like, okay, this is what I want to have happen. And then you're able to put together a plan to make that happen for them.
Yes, it's always interesting too, every now and then I'll get comments back to me, usually on that second or third conversation, about how the first conversation went. What I mean by that is when we first sit down and speak, your statements are going to probably remain in that envelope that you brought with you for quite a while. In fact, I've had many people comment back to me, we were kind of surprised how when we first met, you didn't ask for the numbers right away. And I said, you know what, I'm actually kind of honored that you noted that, you appreciated that. Because of the fact of when I look at an overall plan, the numbers are the numbers. We'll get to the numbers. I want to know the people behind the numbers.
Yes.
I want you to start that conversation off with, they're coming in maybe with some concerns, maybe some worries, maybe some doubts. Even worse, they just lost a job, whatever the case may be. So let's start that conversation off with some positive thoughts.
Yeah.
What does retirement look like for you?
Right.
When you say, well, we'll do some traveling, I'm going to ask you the question, what does that mean? Traveling is different for everybody. So let's kind of start that conversation off. And to your point, Kristin, I tell you what a joy it is to be able to do this every single day. It is such a rewarding thing. You've heard the saying that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Right, yep.
I'm telling you what, I don't think I've worked in a long time, although I get tired quite a bit.
Sure.
Because, we pour a lot of time and energy into every single plan we put together.
Yes.
And when I say we, that's I've got an entire team of people that are supporting us, helping us so that when we customize that plan, and fulfilling our fiduciary responsibility for you, that plan is designed to do exactly for you in retirement so you can realize everything you put on that dream board.
Yeah, I love that so much. And when you were talking about budgets, I was kind of smiling to myself because really what you're doing is you're putting together a spending plan for folks, right? So if you like that terminology better, that's really what it is. You're telling your money where you want it to go.
That's exactly right. And it's kind of interesting you should say that because that was the whole premise behind my book, License to Spend. As I start thinking through this process of walking clients through this. I mean, the thousands of conversations that I've had, in now 21 years of helping folks like this, I thought to myself, well, that's kind of what we're doing. We're taking all of these assets.
Yep.
We're obviously, noting the tax classification of everyone, but again, at the end of the day, just like the show says, income is the outcome. And we'll put together that plan, give you your own license to spend your dollars, and in that way you can enjoy those days, those months and years in retirement and realize what you put up on that dream board.
Yeah, I love how that all ties together, and we'll be talking a little bit more about your book throughout today's show, but that was a perfect way to tie that in for sure. I know that one of the other things that you really focus on with folks is helping them properly change their investment allocations as you are nearing and entering retirement. How should someone's investments change and adjust as they are entering that retirement red zone?
It's one of these things that I think people find the most difficult to do. For years they have been focused in on building wealth, right? That whole ROI of return on investment.
Right.
It's okay to take some risk because if the accounts go down in value, we can buy the low and go back up as the account values appreciate.
And time is on your side.
Time's on your side, that's exactly right. But all of a sudden now we get close to retirement. So here's what the thing that most people I think find difficulty in doing is we need to focus in on no longer chasing yields, but now how do we eliminate volatility? And that's exactly the premise by what I talk about all the time on TV, on my podcast, on my radio advertisements. It's not how much you earn, it's how much you keep. That is the foundation for a solid retirement income plan. So just to kind of, answer your question, Kristin, is we help folks kind of make that transition, right? It does not mean that their portfolio is wrong. In fact, in all the years I've doing this, I cannot honestly tell you that I have ever seen a portfolio that was ever wrong. Many of them are incomplete. Why? Because this is a whole new phase of life. So therefore we sit down, we start to walk through, okay, if we need income for these types of needs and wants, then we might have to shift the assets around a little bit to make sure they're sustainable to create the income we need for those days, months, and years of retirement.
Yeah. No, and I love what you just said. It's not that their portfolio is wrong, but it's incomplete.
Right.
And it's because of that important shift and transition that's happening as you are nearing and entering retirement. And so I guess that's a great question to be having our viewers think through, right? Is your plan incomplete? Are there holes? Are there potential gaps? And what might need to be done for you to make sure that your plan is complete for you and the goals you want to accomplish? So I know this is why you love being able to offer this complimentary written financial plan. And I know folks can also receive a complimentary copy of your book, License to Spend, when they come in and meet with you.
That's exactly right. I mean, you can see it on Amazon. It is a legitimate book. It's actually out there, but don't spend your money. pick up the phone, scan the QR code, jump on our calendar. We'll have this conversation. We'll help put together the customized written plan. And like Kristin said, you will leave that meeting with a complimentary copy of our book. And again, my favorite part of the book is not so much the beginning or the middle, it's more towards the end, because now you'll read about people just like you who are just exactly where at one time where you are right now and what that plan did for them.
Wonderful. Tim, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, this is an excellent opportunity for you to pick up the phone and call to schedule your complimentary written financial plan. And as Tim said, you're also going to receive a complimentary copy when you come in of his book, License to Spend, a retirement plan built on income as opposed to IFCOME. So we encourage you to reach out. You can call 888-992-7829, or you're also welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. When we come back, as we always say, it's not about how much you earn, it's how much you get to keep. We're going to be talking about your potential tax bill in retirement to make sure you can keep more of your hard-earned money. Stay with us.
The way I view this, numbers are amoral. It's the people behind the numbers that I like to learn about. What does retirement look like for them? What are they going to do with these numbers? How long do they think these numbers need to last them? You know, what type of legacy plan do they want to leave for their kids and their grandkids? That's kind of that first dynamic of the conversation, is more just along the lines of, getting acquainted and just kind of discovering what it is that we're working with. If they've ever sat through a timeshare presentation, this is completely the opposite. There is no sales pressure whatsoever, no obligation, there's no risk involved. It's just a simple 1-hour conversation. I think a successful retirement is all about having a plan, because if you think about the unfortunate situations where professional athletes go bankrupt just a few years after they end their professional career, these people have earned tens of millions, maybe even hundreds of millions of dollars, and then they're bankrupt. I just firmly believe that happened because there was no plan. Not only just for the immediate, but also kind of for the foreseeable future, and we can always reflect back on that plan and make sure we're on the right track. Think your retirement savings are all yours? Think again. Your traditional 401k, IRA, or pension comes with a tax bill from the IRS, and it could be bigger than you expect. Want to find out how much? Our quick and easy tax calculator can show you right now. Just scan the QR code or visit retirementtaxreview.com to see your potential tax hit and how to plan around it.
Welcome back to Income is the Outcome, where today Tim and I are discussing how to retire on your terms, no matter what life might throw your way. And one of the ways that you can ensure that you can retire on your terms is by paying attention to your potential tax bill in retirement. Tim, briefly, why don't you share with our viewers why that's so important, and then this awesome resource you have for them that they can utilize during today's show?
That's just a reminder that your IRA is an IOU to the IRS. Those dollars that are in those pre-tax 401ks and traditional IRA accounts are not all your dollars. You have a silent partner in there. So what we have provided to you is a complimentary tax calculator. And you can go to the website you see there on your screen or scan that QR code, type in a couple different details there, and ultimately receive a complimentary 4-page analysis of what your tax bill might look like if you follow the IRS's plan or follow maybe a more tax-efficient plan. We'd love to share that calculator with folks.
Yeah, for sure. So we encourage you to go ahead, take out your smartphone right now and visit retirementtaxreview.com or scan that QR code. It's completely complimentary, and as Tim said, you will get that 4-page report emailed to you. And no doubt, Tim, we've said this on the show before when we've offered this, because you've gotten such a great response from folks using it and receiving that information. Once you see those numbers, you're definitely going to want to reach out to Tim and have him show you how you can keep more of your hard-earned money. And I know this ties in beautifully, as we've been talking today about retiring on your terms. You have no shortage of amazing stories of folks you've been able to help do just that. And you had another story I know you wanted to make sure you got to share today.
Absolutely. So this story here is about Bob and Mary. They're going to celebrate a wedding anniversary, and this trip is going to take them through a remote part of the country. And they like little road trips, so they're going to drive to this little resort. So as they're on this journey, 2-lane road, kind of a remote part of the country, they come through this little town where it says, this is the last gas station for the next 90 miles.
Okay.
And Mary says, oh, Bob, we better pull over and top off. He looks at the gas gauge. He says, no, Mary, we're fine. We got 100 miles before we're empty. He keeps on going. A little bit further down the road, the next sign says 60 miles to gas. Bob looks down, the gas gauge says, Mary, we're okay, we've got 65 miles till we're empty, right? They keep going down the road. A little bit further down the road, as the next sign starts to appear, he sees Mary out of his peripheral vision kind of leaning over and checking out the gas gauge.
The gas gauge, yes.
He's like, it's okay, the sign says next gas is at 40 miles, but we have 46 miles till we're empty, we're gonna be fine. But then every now and then he just keeps seeing Mary kind of leaning over and checking out the gas gauge as they continue to go down the journey. The next sign says 20 miles to gas. He goes, Mary, we're fine. We have 25 miles until we're empty. We're going to be just fine. Finally, they see the edge of the next town. They see the big gas station. They pull in. And with a big grin, Bob says to Mary, see, I told you we were okay. We have 5 miles till we're empty. Mary rolls her eyes. Bob gets out of the car, goes and pumps the gas and fills the tank. So they go down the road a few more miles, pull into the resort. The receptionist greets them, asks where they drove in from, and then she says to Bob and Mary, wasn't that the most beautiful drive you've ever experienced in your life? In fact, AAA rated that journey that you just took as one of the most scenic journeys in all of America. Bob and Mary just kind of look at each other because they realized through that 100-mile, 90-mile journey, they were looking at the gas gauge. And they were not enjoying the scenery around them. And Kristin, where I see far too many retirees doing the same thing when they're constantly focused on the gas gauge of their financial statements. They're concerned about market volatility. They're concerned about some type of news that's breaking corporately. Maybe it's going to impact their stocks, their bonds, their portfolio. Inflation is grabbing people's attention. And when folks have that diversified portfolio, which does not mean we have a safe portfolio, what do? They're focusing on the gas gauge. And I just dare say that I don't believe people focused in on 40 years of hard work, saving, retirement, to get to this point of their journey in life for retirement, to focus on the gas gauge. So if that story kind of resonates with you, where you kind of feel like, or maybe we're devoting a little bit too much attention to the gas gauges of our finances, give us a call. We'd love to sit down with you. We'd love to take inventory of all the assets that you have, understand what the type of retirement you'd like to have would be, so that way you can enjoy the scenery around you and not have to focus so much time on the gas gauges of your finances.
Wow, I love that analogy. I love that story. What a beautiful way to wrap up everything we've talked about today, Tim. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
We encourage you to reach out. We know that a lot of this might feel overwhelming and be new to you. The good news is it's not new to Tim and the team of the Whistler Agency, and they are here to help and serve you. All you need to do is pick up the phone and call. 888-992-7829 is that number to schedule your complimentary written financial plan, and you'll also receive a complimentary copy of Tim's book. Be safe, be happy, be blessed. We'll see you next time here on Income is the Outcome.